What a weekend we had in the NFL. One player was cut immediately on the spot from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We had a great weekend in the NFL. And the college football playoff is now set. And on top of that, we had four big bowl games on Saturday. We had three big bowl games on Saturday that had actually four big bowl games on Saturday that had everybody talking. I will talk about that and more. I'll have the latest NFL playoff picture and some updates from Sunday's action. And I'm going to be talking about former wide receiver Antonio Brown of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we will start the show right after this.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sport.
Everybody, it is now time for the Scott Manning YouTube Sports Weekend Wrap-Up Show. We're going to go right into the show right now. Wide receiver Antonio Brown is no longer a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians said he is no longer a Buck. ESPN sources have said Brown was not benched, he quit. Here's what happened. In the third quarter, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were down 24-10 against the New York Jets, Coach Arians asked Brown to go in. Brown refused twice, and then Coach Bruce Arians said, "Get out." So what he did was, Brown threw off his jersey, he threw off his undershirt, threw his gloves into the crowd, and ran towards the locker room while the game was still going on. MetLife Stadium security thought he was a jumper. Because the problem was he had no shirt on, he didn't have his identification with him, so MetLife Stadium security automatically assumed he was a jumper, and they were actually doing their jobs. That's what they're trained to do. I'll say this though, teammates Mike Evans and O.J. Brown, to their credit, tried to calm Antonio Brown down before he stormed off the field. But what a horrible display on the part of Antonio Brown. And this isn't the first time Brown's had issues with other teams. This isn't the first time. Coach Arians told Fox Sports that he was trying to get Brown to go in. He refused twice, so Arians told him to get out. And that's what led to this whole mess. Antonio Brown's going to be kicked. I'm not sure if he's going to be kicking himself or not. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came back and won that game against the New York Jets today, 28-24. And I'm going to have more on Antonio Brown here in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Now, let's talk about the action on this Sunday afternoon. The Cincinnati Bengals are the champions of the AFC North. They went at home today. They stunned the Kansas City Chiefs 34-31. Joe Burrow, not quite the 525-yard passing performance he had last week, but he was 30 of 39 for 446 yards, 4 touchdowns on the day. Ja'Marr Chase, 11 catches, 266 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Tyler Boyd, 4 catches, 36 yards, and he had a touchdown of his own. Evan McPherson was the hero today for the Bengals on a 20-yard game-winning field goal. But here's what happened. L'Jarius Sneed got flagged for an illegal use of the hands around the goal line, which gave the Bengals a shot at winning the game. But as far as Kansas City goes, Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 35, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns. Darrell Williams, 14 carries, 88 yards. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. Demarcus Robinson, 2 catches, 33 yards, and a touchdown on the day. Travis Kelce, not one of his best days. 5 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown. And Chris Jones, my heart goes out to him. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss today. Both teams had 23 first downs on the day. The first downs are even. The Bengals had 475 yards total offense, despite only rushing the ball for 60 yards as a team. L'Jarius Sneed's going to be kicking himself for this one. That penalty for illegal use of hands late in the fourth quarter, which gave McPherson a 20-yard game-winning field goal, which gave Cincinnati the title, which gave Cincinnati the win, and they are now the champions of the AFC North. My congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals for getting the job done. But what about the Kansas City Chiefs? They had a golden opportunity to win this ball game. Had they won this game, they would have clinched the AFC number 1 seed if Tennessee had lost. But Tennessee was a winner today. And that's going to have huge implications on the AFC playoff race. And I'm going to address that playoff race here in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But congratulations to the Bengals. You took the North. Now, in another game today I could have playoff implications riding on the line. The Las Vegas Raiders beat the Indianapolis Colts today 23-20. Derek Carr, he was 24-31 for 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Josh Jacobs, to his credit, 16 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Zay Jones, 8 catches, 120 yards. They needed every bit of that. Hunter Renfrow, 7 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Yannick Ngakoue, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss today. As for the Indianapolis Colts, it was not pretty. Carson Wentz, 16-27, 148 yards, but he did have a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, 20 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. And T.Y. Hilton, 1 catch only, but it was a big one for 48 yards, and it was the touchdown catch. What happened to the Colts today? Now, Daniel Carlson didn't nail a game-winning field goal at the end. I'll give him that. But the Indianapolis Colts, 3 of 11 on third down today, only 262 yards total offense. And despite the fact that the Raiders turned the ball over twice, the Colts had no answer on third down today. That's what killed them. So the Colts are barely hanging on for dear life in the playoff race. And I'm going to talk about the Colts here a little bit more in just a second. But now, the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's official. Next Sunday night on NBC, the final game of the season, it will be the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Chargers. The winner is in the playoffs. The loser goes home. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in just a minute. The Colts had a chance to keep themselves alive in the playoff race. Now they're hanging on for dear life. And the Tennessee Titans did clinch the AFC South today. Just FYI. Okay, in another game of the day, the LA Rams had to come from behind to beat the Baltimore Ravens today 20-19. Matthew Stafford, he was 26-35 for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have 2 interceptions on the day. Sony Michel from Georgia, 19 carries, 74 yards, and a big touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 6 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. had himself a decent day. 5 catches for 39 yards, and he did have a touchdown on the day. Von Miller, who came over from the trade from the Denver Broncos, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss on the day. And as for the Baltimore Ravens, it was an up and down day. Tyler Huntley, 20-32 for 197 yards and an interception. Tyus Bowser, 1 sack, and that was it. Chuck Clark, he did have 2 interceptions for 17 yards, and he did have an interception return for a touchdown. The Rams barely escaped today. They were down most of this game, and everybody knew what was going to happen. But I'll say this now. My hat's off to the Rams for coming back. They were not able to put the NFC West away today because the Cardinals did come home winners over the Cowboys. And I'm going to talk about that game here in just a sec. Here's what happened. The Ravens were only 4 of 14 on third down today. 327 yards total offense. But despite the fact that the Rams turned it over 3 times, Baltimore did have 2 turnovers themselves. And Baltimore took time of possession. They just could not cash in. They just couldn't do anything in the red zone. That's what happened on this day. And it was a disappointing loss. Yes, it was a disappointing loss for so many reasons. But the bottom line is this. We're going to have a great weekend. We had a great game. Some great games this weekend, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is a win that the Rams needed going into next weekend. And that's all there is to it. And now, speaking of that Arizona-Dallas game, here is what happened. Arizona beat Dallas today 25-22. Kyler Murray, what a day for him. 26 of 38, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also carried the ball 9 times for 44 yards. Antoine Wesley, 4 catches, 30 yards. He had both of Murray's 2 touchdown catches. And Budda Baker, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Got to give the defense a little bit of love. But as for the Dallas Cowboys, it could have been better if they had a chance to get into the lead of the game. Dak Prescott, 24 of 38, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns. Michael Gallup, 3 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown. He had to leave the game after the touchdown catch due to an apparent knee injury. I hope he's okay. Cedric Wilson, 6 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Amari Cooper, he could have had a better day. Only 3 catches for 18 yards, but he did have a touchdown. They needed more production out of Cooper than they got today. That's what killed him. And Dorrance Armstrong, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss today. Here's what went wrong for the Cowboys. 19 first downs, 301 yards total offense, only 45 rushing yards. And the Cowboys were only 3 of 11 on 3rd down today. On top of that, 10 penalties for 88 yards, and the Cowboys barely had the ball for about 25 minutes. That's what went wrong today. And the Cowboys did not lead in this game at all. That's what hurt. I know they've already clinched the NFC East, but you should have been thinking about trying to make some headway, trying to catch the Rams and the Packers to get a better seeding for the playoffs. They didn't get it done. And that is disappointing for a lot of reasons. And the fact of the matter is this. Arizona got the job done, and they're still alive in the battle for the NFC West. And they're still in it with 1 more week to go. And that's the bottom line. And now, speaking of the playoff picture and the playoff race in the NFL, in the AFC and the NFC, there's still a lot of football yet to be played. And there's still a lot of great games to be played. And there's a lot at stake, if you stop and think about it. Tennessee, a winner today over Miami. They were winners today. They all of a sudden find themselves in the number 1 spot in the AFC. Kansas City, a huge setback after getting stunned by the Bengals. They dropped at the 2 speed. They topped at the 2 slot. The Cincinnati Bengals at 10-6, they clinched the AFC North. They're in. And as it stands right now, they're going to be the 3 seed. The Buffalo Bills, a huge winner today. They're at 10-6. They're in. The New England Patriots, 10-6, the 5 seed. As of this moment, they're still in and they're alive. They're still alive for the playoffs. Next Sunday, the NFC East will be decided. And how much fun is that going to be? I don't know who faces who yet, and I'll get that matchup for you. The 6th seed, the Indianapolis Colts. A bad loss to the Raiders really put the Colts in a bad way. And the LA Chargers at 9-7. The Colts and Chargers have the 6 and 7 seeds respectively. And in the hunt still, Las Vegas at 9-7. Next Sunday night, it will be the Chargers and the Raiders. And next Sunday, we'll find out who will get in. Next Sunday night's game on NBC is a win or a go home. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-1. They have an outside mathematical chance of getting in. Watch out for them. Let's see what happens on Monday night. And the Baltimore Ravens at 8-8. After a bad loss today to the LA Rams, they suffered a huge setback. The Ravens are going to need a lot of help now. And I don't think there's going to be any coming. And now on to the NFC. The Green Bay Packers were huge winners today. Were huge winners tonight over the Minnesota Vikings. They're at 13-3. They got the 1 seed. The Los Angeles Rams, a come-from-behind victory today over the Baltimore Ravens. They're 12-4. They are the 2 seed. Coming in at the number 3 seed, at 12-4, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, despite Antonio Brown having a fit and quitting the team. The 4 seed, the Dallas Cowboys. A loss today to the Arizona Cardinals at home really hurt their chances. Coming in at the 5 seed, the Arizona Cardinals. They end their 3-game losing streak today in Dallas. Coming into the 6th seed, the San Francisco 49ers. They still have a shot at getting in. Coming into the 7th seed, the Philadelphia Eagles. Huge winners today over the Washington football team, Jalen Hurts. And there was a scare today in Philadelphia after Philadelphia beat Washington. Part of the stadium railing collapsed while Jalen Hurts was going by. Hurts stopped to make sure the fans were okay. He even had time to post for pictures. None of the fans were hurt. Good news there. And the only team left in the hunt are the New Orleans Saints. That is basically what's left in the NFC playoffs. So basically, the 6th seed were the 49ers. Basically, the 6 and 7 seeds and the New Orleans Saints with a shot at getting in. 49ers, Philly, and New Orleans. That's all that's left. In the AFC, we got about 3, 4, 5 teams fighting for 2 wild card spots going into next Sunday. And that's all there is to it, my friends. And that's all there is to it. Now, that was the game talk. But I want to talk about Antonio Brown. This is a guy who must have been in trouble with the law since the day he was born. Now, Antonio Brown is a great football player, but he's got to keep his attitude. But he's got to watch his attitude. He would be a Hall of Famer, but if all this trouble would not be hitting him, he would just play ball and do what he's supposed to do. With all the stuff he has done, he would possibly be a Hall of Famer. But if you stop and think about what Antonio Brown has done in the last 3 years, you'll see with the frustration. It all started December in 2018. He was deactivated from the Steelers' Week 17 game after reporting throwing a ball at a teammate during practice. Not good. February 2019, he met with Steelers owner Art Rooney, and both sides agreed to move on. In March of 2019, Antonio Brown was traded by the Steelers to the Raiders for 3rd and 5th round draft picks. They figured, okay, Antonio Brown, he was a troublemaker. He'd be a perfect fit in Oakland. In July of 2019, he was placed on a non-football injury list with frostbite on feet after cryotherapy. I don't know what that is, but are you serious? In August of 2019, listen to this. He missed Raiders training camp practices due to helmet grievances. He said his helmet wouldn't fit him. Give me a break. On September 7th, 2019, he was released from the Raiders after an Instagram post. After he posted on Instagram, asking for a release. Really? You go to a team, you don't play for them, and this is ridiculous. But then on September 9th, 2019, 2 days later, he signed a 1-year deal worth up to $15 million with the Patriots. Okay, maybe we're thinking this guy's going to turn it around. It gets worse. September 10th through the 16th, that same week in 2019, ex-trainer Brittany Taylor accuses Brown of sexual assault. And Sports Illustrated reports a second incident of sexual misconduct. September 20th, 2019, Antonio Brown gets released by the Patriots. And if you think it can't get any worse for him, here's what happened to Antonio Brown then. Here's what happened next. January 22nd, 2020. Brown was charged with felony burglary, with battery, and 2 misdemeanors for incident with moving truck company. He pleaded no contest and did not receive jail time. If I would have did something like that, I'd be in jail for 10 years. July 31st, 2020. Brown gets suspended for 8 games for multiple violations of NFL's personal conduct policy. On October 27, 2020, Tom Brady decides, you know what, let's bring Antonio Brown in, maybe kind of straighten him up a little bit. He signs a 1-year contract with the Buccaneers. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Maybe Brown's starting to chill out a little bit. February 7th, 2021. He got 5 passes, including a touchdown, in the Buccaneers' Super Bowl 50 victory. That was huge for him. Now maybe we're going to get somewhere to cool him down. May 25th, 2021, Brown re-signed with the Buccaneers. Then you think it couldn't get any worse? Here's what happened then. December 2nd, 2021. He was suspended 3 games for violating the NFL Players Association COVID-19 protocols. The league and the Players Union found that Brown was among 3 players who misrepresented their vaccination statuses. And then what happened today was inexcusable. He took his equipment off and runs off the field during a game at the Jets. This is at MetLife Stadium. Coach Bruce Arians said he's no longer a Buck. And I'm going to say this too. Antonio Brown was very lucky he didn't get mauled today by the police. After reading all this to you and letting you know what's happened over the last 3 years with this guy, I'm going to say this now. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. It's going to be a miracle he has a football career after this. I mean, he gets let go from the Steelers. Then he goes to the Raiders. The Raiders are known for being troublemakers. That's all there is to it. He couldn't survive in Oakland. And actually, back then, it was still Oakland. And now all this trouble that follows. If I was a league owner, I would not take my chances on him. Not at all. He should be kicked out of the league. He should not be allowed to play in the NFL. And Pro Football Hall of Fame President David Baker, if you're listening, do not let this guy into the Hall of Fame. I don't care how many Super Bowl rings he's won. I don't care how well he's played. Antonio Brown should never be allowed to put on a football uniform again. If he's going to act like a horse's rear end, what he did today was absolutely disgusting. You just don't do it. You don't get to do what you want when you want. It doesn't work that way in the league. You got to play hard, and you got to do what your coach tells you, whether you like it or not. As far as I'm concerned, Antonio Brown should be out of the league, and Antonio Brown should not be allowed to have any part in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. I know it's kind of odd that I'm talking about Hall of Fame now, but I can't wait to see what old Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp have to say tomorrow morning on Undisputed. That's going to be talked about. I guarantee you. And I am just totally, totally disgusted. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to find the very perfect song for him that will describe him. There we go. Here is the perfect song for him. Here is the Ray Charles classic, Hit the Road Jack. I will retitle it, Hit the Road Antonio, but it's along the same lines. So Antonio Brown, this song is perfectly, it describes you, and this song is dedicated to you, you attitude idiot who can't do anything right, who wants to be a quitter. This song is perfectly for you.
What you say? Oh woman, don't treat me so mean. You're the meanest old woman that I've ever seen. I guess if you said so, I'd have to pack my things and go. What you say? say so, I'll have to pack my things and go. What you say? Well, what you said, I didn't understand you. You can't mean that. Oh, now, baby, please. What you trying to do to me?
Okay, that was a tribute to the traitor Antonio Brown, who thinks he's a jerk. But enough of the NFL talk. Let's move on to college football. And the college football semifinal wrap-up, both games, it wasn't pretty. Alabama beat Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl 27-6. Bryce Young, 17 to 28, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he was picked off once. Brian Robinson Jr., he had himself a great game. 26 carries, 204 yards. He was a beast on the day. Will Anderson Jr. on defense was fantastic. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. As for the Bearcats, Desmond Ridder was the only offense, if you could call it an offensive spark. 17 to 32 for 144 yards. That was it. Darian Beavers, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Wilson Hubbard, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. That was it for the Bearcats. So Alabama moves on to the national title game, and they will face the Georgia Bulldogs. And Georgia took part Michigan in the Orange Bowl 34-11. For Georgia, Stetson Bennett, 20 of 30 for 313 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. James Cook, 4 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Nakobe Dean, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. As for Michigan, they decided to try the 2-quarterback system. J.J. McCarthy, he was 7 of 17 for 131 yards and a touchdown. Cade McNamara, oh boy, 11 of 19 for 106 yards. He was picked off 3 times. And Andrell Anthony had 1 catch for 35 yards, but it was a touchdown catch. Georgia's defense did a super job. They shut down Hassan Haskins to 9 carries for 39 yards. Super job there. And Georgia's offensive line did a super job stopping Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson only had 1 tackle for loss in the game. That was it. So now it'll be Alabama, Georgia, January 10th on a Monday night for the national title. Who wins it? Everybody's thinking Alabama's got this. But you remember what happened in the SEC championship game? Bama blew Georgia's doors off. You better believe Georgia's going to want revenge. Can Kirby Smart beat his old boss, Nick Saban, when it really counts? We'll have to wait and see on that. Georgia's defense has got to stop Brian Robinson Jr. He's going to be the guy to watch. And Georgia's offensive line, they've got to contain Will Anderson. That's all there is to it in this game. I'll talk about this game a little bit more in depth this coming Friday during the weekend kickoff show, and I will have in approximately next Sunday night on the wrap-up show. I will talk about that game then. I'll get you ready for that. Sound good? Sweet. But the college football semifinal wasn't the only game in town. We had some great games on Saturday that were instant classics. We started out with the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can put it 2 ways. Either you were watching a video game or both defenses decided to stay home. And I'll get to that here in a second. Ohio State beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. Actually, they came from behind to win the Rose Bowl 48-45. And a bunch of records were set. C.J. Stroud, 37 of 46, 573 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Both those Rose Bowl records. Jackson Smith Nagabajia, 15 catches, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns. The 3 touchdowns are tied for the most touchdown catches in Rose Bowl history. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6 catches, 71 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Court Williams II, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. The only sack in the game. As for Utah, Cameron Rising, I feel so bad for him. 17 to 22, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns. He carried the ball 11 times for 92 yards, and he had a touchdown on the ground. Dalton Kincaid, 3 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Britton Covey, 3 catches, 34 yards, and 1 touchdown in the game. Ohio State had 683 yards total offense, 28 first downs. That is incredible. And despite the fact that Ohio State was penalized 7 times for 70 yards and only had the ball for a little over 25 minutes, they still came from behind and won the ball game. A big win for the Buckeyes. Njikabia had the game-winning touchdown at the end of this game. What an incredible moment. A big moment in the ball game and a Rose Bowl memory that will have everybody all over the country talking. This was the greatest Rose Bowl ever played. A lot of people may debate that, but in my opinion, this is one of the greatest Rose Bowls ever played. We saw records broken by Ohio State. And I'll tell you what, Kyle Whittingham, the Utah head coach, said C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in the country. He was the best. And I'll say this, though, for Cameron Rising. He was crying that he let his team down. I will say this. Cameron Rising, you have a bright future ahead of you. I know you're thinking this hurts, but I'll tell you what. Your team overcame a lot of adversity. Losing two of their players were killed by gunfire earlier in the year. They fought back. They struggled for the first part of the season. Then they come out of nowhere and win the Pac-12. And my hats go off to them. Utah played us tough. Ohio State was down by 14. But then C.J. Stroud led the Buckeyes to a comeback. This was one of the greatest Rose Bowls ever played, in my professional opinion. The Rose Bowl was one of the greatest games ever played, but the Citrus Bowl was a pretty good game too. Kentucky upset Iowa 20-17. Will Levis, Kentucky, Will Levis, 17 to 28, 233 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Chris Rodriguez Jr., 20 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he even caught a touchdown pass too. Wandale Robinson, 10 catches, 170 yards. That was a big day for him. As for Iowa, it was a disappointment. Spencer Petras, 19 to 30, 211 yards, 1 touchdown. He was picked off 3 times. Arlen Bruce II, 2 carries for 71 yards, and he had a touchdown in the game. Sam Laporta, 7 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. But the guy I feel the most sorry for is Zach Van Valkenburg. He had 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss in the game. I look at it like this. Kentucky had the ball for almost 38 minutes in that game. That is why they won. And Iowa turned the ball over 3 times in the contest. That's what went wrong. Iowa was 4 of 11 on 3rd down. That's another thing that really hurt. Kentucky played with a heart to win the Citrus Bowl. They had a chance to win the SEC East and be in the college football playoff, but they blew it earlier in the year. I'll tell you what. A great game for both teams. It's a disappointment that there had to be a loser. Unfortunately, it was Iowa, but Kentucky, my hat's off to you. You guys got the job done in the ball game at exactly the right time. Congratulations to the Kentucky Wildcats, known as a basketball school, but they were Citrus Bowl champions. My hats go off to you guys down in Lexington. While the Citrus Bowl was going on, we had another crazy bowl game, just as crazy going on. The Fiesta Bowl. Oklahoma State came from behind to beat Notre Dame 37-35. What a game that was. And you'll find out what I mean here in just a minute. Spencer Sanders, he might as well have just taken the game on his shoulders. 34-51, 371 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had 17 carries for 125 yards by himself. Jalen Warren, he had 106 yards of offensive production. I'll put it that way. Tay Martin, 10 catches, 104 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Brock Martin, some love for the defense. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss at exactly the right time. But as for Notre Dame, Jack Cohn, a performance, it was all for naught. 38-68, 509 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Lorenzo Styles Jr., 8 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown. Chris Tyree, 6 catches, 115 yards, and he had a touchdown of his own. Kevin Austin Jr., 6 catches, 105 yards, and he had a touchdown himself. Michael Mayer, 7 catches, 72 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns in the game. And Isaiah Foskey, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Here's the thing that gets me in this game. Oklahoma State beat Notre Dame on the first down department 34-27. Notre Dame was 11 of 20 on third down. Oklahoma State was only 3 of 14 on third down in the game. Total yards, 605 yards for Oklahoma State, 551 for Notre Dame. And Oklahoma State outrushed Notre Dame 234-42. And Oklahoma State and both teams did have 2 turnovers in the game. I said on Friday this game was going to be a toss-up. I mean, it was almost a 50-50 split on who was going to win the Fiesta Bowl. But it came out that Oklahoma State was the winner. And to Mike Gundy and company, congratulations. You guys earned it. And Mike Gundy was like, I'm going to support. I'm going to man up my hairstyle. And I'm going to man up the mullet. And I may be about 70 years old, but don't get on to me. I'm now 70, and I got a mullet. That's about what he said after the game. Mike Gundy, my hats go off to you and the Oklahoma State Cowboys for getting the job done in the Fiesta Bowl. And my congratulations to you guys out of the Big 12. Now, let's wrap this up with the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl game. Baylor, Ole Miss. Baylor came out a winner 21-7. And you're going to be thinking, what in the heck happened with the Baylor offense? Well, here's what happened. Now, Baylor's Jerry Bohannon. He was 7-17 for 40 yards. He had a touchdown and an interception. But he had a great running back, too, in Abraham Smith. 25 carries, 172 yards. But he didn't have a touchdown. That touchdown went to Monarchy Baldwin. McCarty actually went to McCarty Baldwin. 1 catch, 40. Well, he only had 1 carry for 48 yards, but it was a touchdown carry. But let's give some love to the defense. Terrell Bernard, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Bryson Jackson, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. And Al Walcott, he had a 96-yard interception pick 6, which really sealed the deal for the Baylor Bears. But as for Ole Miss, what happened? Luke Altmaier, 15-28 for 174 yards, 1 touchdown. He was picked off twice. Dontario Drummond, 9 catches, 104 yards. Braylon Sanders, 1 catch for 37 yards, and it was a touchdown. Sam Williams had 1 tackle for loss. But there was some bad news for Ole Miss. Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral suffered a knee injury. But the good news is his x-rays came back negative, so there's some good news there. But the Baylor defense did a lot of damage. 10 sacks, 9 tackles for loss as a team. Baylor won this game despite only 12 first downs, 319 total yards, and they were 7 of 15 on third down. Here's the problem, though. Ole Miss was 6 of 22 on third down. Baylor outrushed Ole Miss 279 to 138. It's just some food for thought. Ole Miss had 3 turnovers to Baylor's 1. That is why Baylor won the Sugar Bowl. And that was a great game. I saw that game. I'm thinking it was 7-0 at the half. It was going to be 7-all going into the fourth quarter. But then Baylor just came out and showed us why. They were the best in the Big 12, and that is how they won the Big 12 crown. My hats go off to the Baylor Bears on a Sugar Bowl victory. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this weekend. We saw some great college football this past weekend on Friday and Saturday, on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. We saw some NFL greatness, and we saw one player just basically quit in the middle of the game. With everything that has happened, with John Madden's passing today, and along with the sad news of Dan Reeves, the former Dallas Cowboy and former head coach of the Denver Broncos, passing away. I got that news earlier today. As we come up on the end of the NFL season, it's going to be a great opportunity to focus on college basketball and the NBA. And the NBA promises to have a great weekend. But I'll tell you what, this past weekend was wild, crazy, and it was fun. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day gave us a lot of great memories. But as we go into the 2022 new year, I promise you, the sports world is going to be something to think about in 2022. We got one more week to go in the regular season in the NFL. I can tell you up front, the Raiders will face the Chargers on Sunday night. The rest of the TV schedule for the NFL will be announced later this week, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. There will be 2 doubleheaders on Sunday on Fox and CBS. That has already been determined. With everything on the line, next Sunday, you'll have to wait and see what happens then. Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here on this weekend. I'll be back here Friday morning. I'm going to come back here at 10 a.m. on Friday as we get ready for the Scott Manning YouTube Sports Weekend Kickoff Show. I am going to be coming on the air at 10 a.m. to get you ready for a busy weekend in sports. As we get ready for a crazy weekend, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So that's why I'm going to the 10 a.m. start time. Because there's going to be so much to talk about. 2 big games in the NBA on Friday night. We have a huge weekend coming up in the NFL. Now I have everybody talking. And college basketball is in full swing. I'll be back here Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time for the Scott Manning YouTube Sports Weekend Kickoff Show. But until then, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is type my name, scroll down, look for this pretty face, click subscribe, and you will see all the sports videos I have done so far. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here on this night. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless. Good night, everybody, and I thank you.